Hi everyone, my name is Steve Gaynor. I'm the community coordinator for socialbizug.org, and I'd like to welcome today Mr. Randy Davison. He is not only a member of our website, of our community, but he is the manager, is that right, of the Atlanta user group?
We use the term chairman,
Chairman.
and I'll explain that in a minute. So,
All right, well then, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Mr. Randy Davison, our chairman of the board. How are you?
fine. How are you, Stephen?
I'm doing very well. So, Randy, let's start with the easy stuff. What do you do for a living? What's your job title? Who do you work for, if you can say?
Sure.
And basically, give me your elevator resume.
I'm a senior analyst with Macy's Systems and Technology. We are the IT arm of the big Macy's corporation. Um, and at this point in time, I work for the messaging support group. As you can see from looking at me, I'm heading towards the end of my career. I've actually been a developer for all of the time that I've spent in IT. I've been a programmer, a developer. But as the market has changed, as I have grown older and gotten a little closer to retirement, I ended up here at Macy's in the support position, which I enjoy a great deal. And there are 8 people on my team plus a manager, and we support 60,000 mail users out of 150,000 total employees. Something I didn't know about Macy's is that uh, more than 50% of their employees are not knowledge workers. They ship clothing and restock shelves and um, uh, price products and clean and just do everything. And Macy's is a company that literally does everything. I was talking to a fellow on the phone, and I said, so while we were waiting for something to happen, I said, so what do you do? And he goes, well, I monitor all of the security systems in all 850 locations of Macy's. And I was astounded that they didn't outsource that. But the Macy's is not like that. So what I do is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much end user support of email users who use Notes clients, who use iNotes, um, and we use Same Time pretty heavily. We use Traveler for all of our mobile devices. So it's a pretty robust environment, at least for me. We have just a little snapshot of our environment. We have 98 email servers.
Wow.
Yeah, we have 48 primary and 48 secondary clustered servers. We actually have 2 big honking AIX boxes. One that sits here in Atlanta, one that sits up near Cleveland in our Lorraine data center. And on each of those is 24 primary servers and 24 secondary servers for a total of 48 on each box, which gives us a total of 96 email servers. And then we have over 50 other servers that serve different purposes, from Same Time to applications and the like. And we manage all of the boxes. Um, I have a slightly unique role, not totally unique because I'm not the only person who does this in our group, but Macy's never really set up a development team. Some of the divisions, as big a company as Macy's is, the divisions end up being often fairly autonomous. So some of the divisions have set up notes development teams, but at the corporate level, at the corporate IT level, they never did. And so people on our team, which is primarily messaging support, also find themselves doing application support and application server support and the like. So a day in the life is emails and tickets and phone calls and remoting into people's computers and reconfiguring notes and recertifying IDs and resetting passwords and just everything you can imagine that might happen in an email support environment.
That sounds awfully familiar. I have not done it on that large a scale, but I've done a lot of what you're talking about. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very familiar. Okay, so as I mentioned, well, since you are chairman of the board of the Atlanta User Group, can you tell us how did that come about? How did the group come about, and who put you in charge?
Well, that's an interesting little question. I'm going to drop back and give you just a little bit of history, mainly because I like to talk about it. Not that I think that everybody will be all that interested. Very frankly, I was Lotus's second customer in Atlanta, and wrote my first notes application in June of 1989. And as I mentioned to you a little bit before we got started the interview, the field sales tech who helped sell notes to the company I was working for at the time was Scott Souter. And Scott and I sat together in Dallas in his office for about a half a day, put together a quick notes application so I could bring that and the software back to my company for kind of proof of concept. So I've been at this quite a while. I was a customer for 2 years and with a company called Management Science America. They don't exist anymore. They were the world's largest independent manufacturer of mainframe application software.
Wow.
And independent meant they weren't IBM because back then there was IBM mainframe software and everybody else. And MSA was the largest of the other mainframe software companies. So we acquired Notes right at the beginning of 1990. I spent 2 years there bringing it along to a certain point, and then I turned to my friends at IBM and I said, "Is there something I can do?" Not IBM. I'm sorry. This was before the acquisition.
Okay.
But I turned to my friends at Lotus and I said, "Is there anything I can do for Lotus?" And they went, "Yes." And so I joined Lotus for 2 years in 91 and 92. Field sales tech. I covered DC to Miami, which meant I got on an airplane in the morning to go to work.
Yep.
And continue to work closely with some of the salespeople. For a while, I was supporting the brand new business partner channel that had just been created for Notes and for Lotus Notes. And also worked with, then I did that for 2 years, 90 and 91, and then joined a local business partner here in Atlanta and helped form the very first Lotus Notes users group in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
At that time. And it went through, I think, 3 lifetimes. I have said this in front of every business partner that's involved with the Atlanta Lotus user or ATLUG, and I'll explain. It's not really called the Atlanta Lotus Users Group anymore, but I've told this to all of the business partners that are involved in the current users group that the fastest way to kill a users group is to let one business partner run it, because that business partner turns it into an exclusive marketing channel, and all the other business partners run screaming and hiding their children, their customers behind their skirts. No, don't look. You might see someone who knows something, and or someone else who knows something. So the first 3 rose up, kind of died, primarily because one business partner or the other kind of took it over. And then about 10 years ago, I was working at Emory University here in Atlanta.
Where?
At Emory University.
Where is that?
It's in Atlanta.
Okay. Sorry.
And that's okay. Not everybody knows Emory, but it's a very they have a Emory University hospital system as part of the university, and they're one of the largest medical research institutions in the South. But I worked for their HR department, and the HR department used Lotus Notes. And I'm sitting at my desk one day, and my friend Tom Rao, who still works at the Federal Reserve, called me up and goes, "Randy, I'm the only notes guy at the Federal Reserve." And I'm like, "Well, I'm really the only notes guy at Emory University." And he goes, "Do you feel as lonely as I feel?" And I'm like, "Well, pretty much." And then, and he goes, "Let's see if we can't get the users group started again." So I got in touch with an IBMer named Joe Baxter, who at the time was the business partner liaison, kind of, I guess, Southeastern business partner liaison. He's gone on to do bigger and better things with IBM. But Joe helped Tom Rao and I get ATLUG set up, ATLUG, the Atlanta Lotus Users Group. And we did some brainstorming and said, okay, what was it that led to, other than being led by a business partner? And I apologize to all you great business partners out there, but it just doesn't work. So at least in my experience. But other than that, we started saying why did it fail, and what could we do differently to make it work? So we decided to do quarterly meetings. Monthly meetings take too much effort, especially if you're a customer of Lotus, which means that you have a full-time job doing something else, right, other than marketing and supporting the Notes community. Well, so we decided on quarterly meetings. We decided to have them at lunchtime. And our local IBM, one of our local IBM executives put a budget item, and they feed us lunch. And so ATLUG meets quarterly on the third Thursday of the second month of each calendar quarter, but only when the moon is blue. Yeah, that's the.
I was going to say, we need a program for that.
Yes, yeah, I've actually written one. So. But it's just full of print statements, so don't let it get excited. And we've been doing that for about 10 years now, meeting quarterly at lunchtime at an IBM facility. We were at kind of the main one in Atlanta, which the building we used to meet in was imploded. And when IBM sold that campus to the Atlanta public school system, and it's now being remodeled into a high school, if you can imagine. But we've gone to another IBM facility in the city and are meeting there, and the question about who put me in charge, I often refer to myself as the de facto chairman of the Atlanta Lotus Users Group, which means no one else will do it. And what that really translates into is, after the very first ATLUG meeting about 10 years ago, Tom Rao didn't come to another one. Tom, if you're listening, I apologize, but I'm just telling the truth, bud. And so I ended up being the sole guy working with my IBM contacts. And for really the last 10 years, pretty much I've run it by myself with the help. And this is, I think, a real secret. That it's kind of counterintuitive based on what I've said, but with the help of several very willing business partners. There's a couple of business partners in town who have engaged with the users group, who have provided speakers, who have provided contacts. I haven't actually been to Lotus Fair / Connect in the last 5 years, and that's a great place to make contacts for user group meetings and speakers and presentations. And so I've had business partners, some very, very excellent business partners, help me with those sort of things.
It really is. I got to go to my first Connect this year, and I met some wonderful people there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And ATLUG would not have been as successful as it has. And interestingly enough, just recently, we formed an executive board made up of the president of 2 different business partners and myself. but myself as the client being the chairman. And we call it chairman because it all sits on me. That's why I used to, that's why I've always called myself the chairman, the de facto chairman. So, because like no one else would do it and it all kind of rested on me. Not that that was all that big a deal. Having quarterly meetings makes a big difference in the amount of effort you have to put into keeping a users group meeting going. But we now have an executive committee, and we have a couple of other people involved in an ex officio capacity, and are beginning to, with that infusion of energy and just having time to do things, we're now exploring expanding the group and trying to do more in the way of special events, other than just our quarterly users group meetings.
Excellent.
So was that good enough?
Absolutely. And I do have another question about your meetings. And please forgive me, I need to look at my notes because I want to make sure I get this right. I was looking at your community on the socialbizug.org site.
Right.
And I see that last week, your March 7th meeting, that you had Scott Suter speaking about the roadmap session for IBM strategy for IBM Notes and Domino.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit? I know there is a tremendous amount of interest. I know this from, as I said, I went to Connect this year. There's a huge amount of interest at Connect, and I see a lot of posts on our site that there's a lot of interest about that. So could you talk about that session just a little bit, please?
Well, all of a sudden, I'm wishing I'd paid more attention. Uh, um, so I feel a little ill prepared because I would do a better job if I had brought notes, or no, maybe if I had taken notes with this sort of thing in mind. But I think I would characterize the big picture as, no, Notes is not dead. Lotus is gone, and we're now blue. We're not yellow. Blue is the new yellow. Um, that there's still, I think, a strong commitment within IBM to the Notes client. I will say, and this is not something that I particularly agree with, that the focus for IBM in the development side of Notes and Domino really is X Pages. And I'm an ancient COBOL programmer. That's where I started.
Okay.
I've always been a procedural programmer. And for all of you guys out there who are going to throw things at the screen when you hear this, I'm not a fan of hardcore object-oriented programming. And even though Notes and Domino, the Lotus script programming supports both highly procedural and highly object-oriented programming, mine is all procedural. And so I'm a little, when actually a year and a half ago, Ed Brill came to Macy's to talk about futures. And he made a flat statement that our direction for development is X Pages. And I said, please don't forget about those people like me who, and Macy's doesn't do websites on Domino. They do websites and everything else, but not in Domino. And I said, don't forget about those of us who are still doing significant work in Lotus Script in a procedural way. Don't just pretend that the web is the only UI that people are ever going to use. But while that, I think, is their focus and where they're going to continue to put money and effort into making the environment better, I don't see them abandoning people like me. But that's where the innovations are going to come in the X Pages space, the web client space. as we move forward. A strong commitment to same time. Um, I think they want it to all run on WebSphere, but that's maybe, I don't know. That's just my opinion based on based on a gut feel. It's also where they moved Macy's. You know, Macy's was actually having some challenges with same time in our large distributed environment. We have people literally around the globe, and they talked us into moving same time to WebSphere, and it's worked very nicely. It's very solid. It's very stable, but it's also very different than running it on Domino. So I don't feel like I can speak as specifically as maybe I'd like, or maybe the listeners would like me to, about kind of the collaborative overview. But come to Atlanta on April 7th, and you can hear Scott Souter speak of it again here in Atlanta. So. So what? Get me off the hook here. I'm beginning to stutter.
That's all right. Well, I guess we need to start wrapping it up. So now, Randy, I have the most important question of the interview.
All right.
What is your favorite movie and why?
Oh, gee. Single movie. If I had to pick an absolute favorite single movie, would be The Shawshank Redemption.
Ooh, great movie.
And I think you just explained why. It's just now are there lots of other movies that are right up there at the top? Sure. Um, but I would say Shawshank Redemption. What I would like to do, if I may, is just put another little word in about our April 7th
Oh, sure.
gathering. We're like I said earlier, um, we have an executive board who's brought a lot of energy to a lot more energy than just I could bring to Atlug with a full-time job and being old and decrepit. Um, and we're having what we're calling on April 7th, we're having what we're calling the Atlug Day of Champions. And we have 12 speakers scheduled right now that are going to do kind of TED Talk-esque um, talks. We're going to start with a speed geeking where everybody's going to get like 5 minutes to introduce themselves and kind of throw out a concept. Then we're going to roll around back to the beginning of the group, and they're going to start the TED style talks. They're not all going to be about notes and domino. They're probably not all going to be about collaboration, and maybe not even all about technology. We're not quite sure what's coming quite yet. We've gotten the speakers set, but we haven't quite gotten all of the subjects down. But to give you a preview of who's speaking, Julian Robichaud, Keith Strickland, Lisa Duke, Lewis Richardson, Nathan Freeman, Peter Presnell. We just today found out that Rocky Oliver is not going to be able to join us, but don't let that keep you away. It'll be a great time anyway. Tim Tripkany, Chris Wisenart, Colin McDonald, Darren Duke, and Hanley Cameron are the scheduled speakers now. If you don't know those names, and you can and are in Atlanta or can come to Atlanta, we don't really expect to get many people from outside the Atlanta area. One of the unique things about this is that of those 12 people I just named, 7 of them are current or former IBM champions. That's why we call it the Day of Champions. And then after the speed geeking, the TED style talks, we'll have lunch, and then we'll wrap up the day with a guru palooza, as Nathan refers to it, Nathan Freeman. And then we'll adjourn to a what I call the Dutch treat portion of the day at a local purveyor of food and spirits for those who don't want the fun to end. We have a new URL for our website. It is atl.ug, which is also ATLUG, the name of the group. Which leads me, I wanted to explain that we are now the Atlanta ATL Users Group (UG) for IBM Collaborative Technologies, and so that's the new name of the organization. We kind of gave into pressure from IBM to take Lotus out of the name, even though I polled 3 meetings worth of attendees, and not one person was in favor of taking Lotus out of the user group name. But we went ahead and changed it. So the last thing I'd like to do is share a little nostalgia with you. I don't know how many people might remember. Can you read that?
Oh, look, yeah, Notes from Macintosh, Disc 9.
It's version. It's release 3, and here's release 3 OB for OS2, the server. And you notice it's not called Domino; it's called Lotus Notes Server for OS2. And then, of course, it wouldn't be complete without the Lotus Notes client. This is as old as I could find. Was version 3. The next to the last thing is one of my most prized possessions. Is a version 1 mug, and they were made plastic, and this one is cracked, so I can't drink out of it anymore, which is probably a good thing. But that's what this is what an R1 mug looked like. And finally, and I think I have to move back for this, this is the version 1, the first version 1 marketing poster.
Wow.
Is that fairly well centered, Stephen?
Yeah, hold it up just a little.
Okay.
There you go.
And you can see Lotus Notes at the bottom. And this was so new when I got it. There's not even a copyright mark on it. And so, and this image was the first marketing image for Lotus Notes, and it was accompanied by a tagline that said, "Because information has no value until it is shared."
You know, those things in eBay could be your retirement right there. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have them on display at the August 7th. I mean, at the April 7th event. I'm going to hire a guard because I know some of the people who will be there, and I wouldn't put it past a couple of them from trying to walk off with my version 1 mug. So,
well, when you went through your list of speakers, I know most of the names. I've actually interviewed 2 of them.
Excellent.
Right here, Keith Strickland and Chris Wisenett. Well, if you'll look back in the past on my blog, if you have any interest, you can see their interviews. Couple of really great guys.
I'll do.
I was actually going to ask you if you knew Keith. It didn't dawn on me until like last week that, oh, wait a minute, these guys are in the same area. You
right.
know?
Well, actually, everybody whose name I read live in the Atlanta area. And so all 12 of them, some of them are fairly recent transplants to the Atlanta area. Peter Presnell, but Nathan Freeman has been here. When I was the business partner liaison in 1991, Nathan was working for a local business partner back then. So I've known of Nathan. The business partner I was working for in 91, 92, in 93, hired Rocky Oliver out of WordPro support to come and work for us as a notes developer.
Wow.
And so I probably the only real distinction I have in the Lotus community is the fact that I've been around a long time. It's just longevity. I'm not sure if I've contributed that much in any way, but I've been around a long time and have known a lot of really great people in this community, and I'm very, very pleased to be a part of it.
Well, Randy, I'm very pleased to have made your acquaintance now.
Thank you, Stephen. Me too.
I do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And now I won't be able to make it to your meeting, but I'm hoping to hear about it on the site. All right?
We're hoping to video it.
Oh, excellent. I'll
And
be happy to put it up for you.
well, and that was actually something we were counting on, is being able to put it up on Social Biz.
Absolutely.
So it is a plan for us to video it, and then make those available a week or so later, after we get everything together. And we're very, very much looking forward to it. And I will say one thing: I've kind of made that event sound like it's targeted to people outside of Atlanta. It really isn't. If you want to come to Atlanta to be a part of this one-day event, we would welcome you. But at the same token, it's really targeted at local people, because travel's very expensive these days. And while we think it's going to be great fun and tremendously valuable, I'm not sure it's quite what people would want to spend travel dollars on. But anybody's welcome. We'd love for anybody around the world to come visit us here in Atlanta on April 7th. But we're mainly looking for folks who live in the Southeast and the Atlanta area. So,
All right. Randy, again, thank you so much for your time.
thank you,
And
Steve.
please take care of yourself.
Yep, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.